Hey everybody, welcome to the Game Cave Development Blog. This is where I give my backers and those all you little bots out there kind of follow what I'm up to at Game Cave an update on what I've been working on, what I plan on doing, how I plan on shirking responsibilities and not getting anything done. I kid. Joining me to talk about Game Cave today will be Brandon. Let Heavy James. Brandon, say hello.
Hello.
Alrighty, so we're all good. Hey, you like the new decor?
It's very nice.
Like the purple and gold theme? It's almost as if I've been working on this and just not sharing. Wonder why that is, Brandon.
I do not know, sir.
I got my Batman sippy cup here with some wine because it's Friday night. What? Like that? I'm not allowed to have anything in my studio that isn't protected with spill guard.
People say I'm a man child. I'm just gonna refer them to this where you have a sippy cup, sir. So
these little ones too, man. They make noises when you sip them. So
yeah, I was wondering at first because the video was a little slow. I'm like, what the hell is that noise? I'm like, did I make that? And all of a sudden I look up and you got like, Fisher Price's How to Get Drunk. So
why don't we talk some Game Cave, Brandon? So all right, so if you are a backer of the Kickstarter 4 years ago, you're probably wondering, where's my fucking book, Rob? So I'm just gonna give you all the basic info, and then you can shut this off, move on in life, or you can hang out for the extended version after the fact. So the basic info is this. I kickstarted a video game magazine, right? That was going to be written by fictional characters, featuring fictional writers and characters, featuring primarily fighting games. I think at the time it was going to be all fighting games. Now it's mostly fighting games. And then I went and created a whole universe for that to exist in. I got a story and a comic book / novel element. But Brandon, I'm tired of answering where's the Kickstarter.
Right.
And it's not you guys I'm annoyed with. It's this whole situation. I only did the Kickstarter at the time because I was sort of pushed into it by myself, not just my business part of the time, but myself, and we were trying to find a way to get around some issues we were having with some publishers. And this was an idea I had. And when things fell through with my business partner, I wanted to go and add this comic book element of it and try to get my comic book career going again because that had disappeared. But to finish this Kickstarter, I am going to just finish the game magazine, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna have everything I talked about, and then I'm going to ship it to you. And then when all that's done, I'm gonna go and work on my comic part, pitch it through the internet, put it out there, and then when that's all done, recollect it and re-kickstart that. So this I'm calling the official Game Cave Guide, right? It's going to be called the official Game Cave Guide, not Game Cave Fighting Junkies. Later, when there's a story, it'll be 1-1, 1-2, 1-3. But right now, it's going to be the official Game Cave Guide. And I should have grabbed this, Brandon, really quick. Let me go to my back here into my handy-dandy, what do you call this, library, right? Little book of stuff here. Hold on, it's a little shelf of books. 1 second. I'll grab these, folks. I should have had this ready. I forgot. Let me grab...
We do this live. We clearly are prepared for every situation. And hello to everyone in the chat. Shadow Kid, Ash, Armando, everybody, thanks for joining us.
All right. So back when I was a little dude, and I first got my Nintendo around, we got it Christmas of '85 when it first came out. My father, my buddy of mine had this, the official Nintendo Player's Guide. It was a strategy guide. All the maps were hand drawn and stuff. It was crazy. I always wanted one. Could never get one when I was a kid. And then later on in life, after waiting on eBay, I found one in brand new condition, complete with, check this out, Brandon, still has the original stickers. How fucking cool.
Wow.
Yeah, right? This is probably in the top 3 things I own for me. Like if there's a fire, this is coming with me. The dog, the wife, the Cintiq, this, and maybe my physical art, you know, like
And
that.
the cat.
Oh yeah, and the cat. Anyhow, why do I bring this up? So I'm not going to be recreating this, but this is sort of my template for this book. So it'll have a somewhat of a game cave layout to this kind of cover with characters down the spines and stuff. It'll be similar to this in its setup, but this was the precursor to Nintendo Power. This and a thing called the Nintendo Power Fan Club newsletter. So the official Game Cave guide will only be available to you backers, to the people who backed it. I might have a few left over in print just for myself, you know, but I'm not going to put it back into print. I will then make it available as a free download moving forward as I have to pitch Game Cave to the world, right, Brandon? So like as I put the book up and I have to explain the world, this will always be the way I can show what the core idea of Game Cave is, that it's a game store in another universe that imports our games, and they've had their own magazine and store for 30 years. You know, and so if you want to see, there's a thing called a pagination in magazines. It's just pagination, just basically writing down in a Word document or an InDesign, however you want to do it, or Excel. In this case, it's a Google Doc. What your book's going to be filled with. I'm just going to cut over here really quickly to, this is my Google Docs. This is the official Game Cave Guide, Rev 2. It's going to be 108 pages. It's going to have 4 pages devoted to the cover. So the front, these are, now in magazines, like in this book, this is called C1. This backside is considered C4. So when you open up a magazine or a book, the inside is C2, and the inside back is C3. Does that make sense? Cover 3, cover 1, cover 2. So cover 1 and 4 will be artwork. Cover 2 will have the timeline for Game Cave, plus the ages and the contents of the book. And then on the back side on C3 will be my notes and credits and my own little whatever. And then we're going to have an intro to Game Cave, and then we're going to have, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. So we're going to have the Zodiac Dimensions, which I've covered that in previous Kickstarter videos, right, Brandon? Like the picture of the dimension that it takes place in the galaxy and all the planets, which all the stuff's already worked out. The world map you guys have seen will be there. The planet's called Vania. So the Vania, the locations on Vania, 2 pages will be devoted to the creatures and races, and then 7 pages will feature the complete design of the shop, and then lead into the magazine. And the shop is all like pretty much worked out. Where it's located in a town called Briar Bay. I've shown some concept art for that before, and I'll get more into that artwork in future development blogs. And then it will have a breakdown of the magazine through the eras that it existed. So for me, one of the goals of Game Cave was to show the transformation of American video game magazines as I experience them overall in terms of their design and aesthetic and culture in a way. From when I was basically from 1985 up until when I worked at Play and Game Fan 2010.
Oh, wow.
So, so for me, that means Nintendo Power. I've broken it down into 4 distinct visuals. Nintendo Power, which is sort of the dawn of the enthusiast magazine with drawn layouts and things like that. Before they were very technical, like they were like based around computer, like Tandy and hard end. But Nintendo Power, Game Fan, which Dave Halverson founded in 1992 or 3. I actually, hold on one second. I should have done this too, right? This is, I'll grab this one second. Folks, I should always.
The joys of being live. And
this is the other thing I would take with me on fire. I'm going to show you a little piece of gaming history, folks. Right? Let me cut that.
You still have it on the small screen, or did you switch it back?
I'm going to switch back. So this is Game Fan issue 1 first printing. The actual issue of Game Fan from 1993. Given to me personally by Dave Halverson.
Wow.
It's in brand new condition, straight from his collection.
For all history.
Yeah, and it looks fucking crazy, Brandon. I wish I'm gonna have to do a video sometime where I just like go through every page, and kind of show it to everybody. But for me, Game Fan was the next phase of like the Nintendo. It was all like cyber, like cyber Sega based, and that sort of hardcore gaming enthusiast part of the 90s. And then you go to Play Magazine. Shit, I should go grab both these on, Brandon. I didn't really think this through.
Oh. And I get shit when I'm not prepared, people. Come on. Nah. Good stuff. Luckily, he's got his collection.
Here we go. So then you go to Play Magazine, and this is Play Magazine. This is the last issue of Play Magazine ever. They did it for about 10 years. I drew the cover when I was working at Play. This is my art here. Diego Rodriguez did the colors with me on assists because he didn't want to fucking deal with it. But Play Magazine sort of started this whole look of like minimalist giant pictures, right? With like techno fonts and, real classy, kind of like the way iOS and, the modern,
Yeah.
user interfaces look. Play Magazine sort of did a lot of that stuff. So Play would be the third era of gaming magazines, which no magazine has gotten away from since. It's very economical to make. Like if you're making a magazine, I actually recommend making it like Play. Don't do what I did, which is Game Fan 2010. This is Game Fan 2010. From about 2010 to 2011. I did about 7 issues. I did 7 issues. This is my art on the cover. I drew and colored this, and I laid out the entire magazine by myself. And it's very, this was issue 6. It's very collage-y. Like I consider it like Game Fan in H. I called it 1997 in HD. But there were just some crazy fucking layouts. And I was trying to incorporate, let's see if I can quickly grab an example of this in this issue. I was also trying to work in like that scrapbooking look at the time, like those journals or people kind of like, you like post all your stuff in the journal and draw around it. I was trying to like also add that into game magazines and trying to make it like something that you couldn't get online. Does that make any sense, Brandon? Like some giant fucking thing you could lay down. Nah, it's not in this issue. This one I tried to make on a budget. But I did 7 issues of these. So for me, Game Cave is basically Nintendo Power, right? Which I don't have my Nintendo Powers out because I didn't work on any. Those are boxed up. Nintendo Power, Game Fan, Play Magazine, Game Fan 2010. At the start of the story. So this history, let's go over to the pagination. We'll cover those eras, all from the years they existed, the format. In terms of Game Cave Era 1, it will have a specific look that's based around RPGs. So all the editors at the time, there was Rad Bacon and Nessa, and Rad was King Rad, and Bacon was Queen Bacon, and he's always wearing different costumes. So he's Queen Bacon, and Princess Nessa, who's a bit of a tomboy, hates that fucking term, so she's always pissed off. And everything was like in like an RPG feeling. So the different formats of the things were like now questing would be for game reviews. And so these are the games that'll be in there: Dragon Warrior, TMNT 2, Battletoads, Street Fighter 2. And then a little mini comic, Wizard and SM Mighty Final Fight. And then Era 2 will be Mortal Kombat 2, Chrono Trigger, X-Men, Children of the Atom, Killer Instinct Gold. And then, so it's going to be these game reviews with an example of a feature that existed in each issue, plus the history. So each thing will look like, history, game reviews, feature, history, game reviews, feature. So get Era 3, the Play Magazine version, Street Fighter 3, Soul Calibur 4. This goes between, I can tell you the years roughly. So it's like roughly 85, 87 to 90, and then like 1990, 92, I can't remember. And then basically 92, 93, all the way up to 2000, and then 2000 to 2010. And then Year 4 would be 2010 to when the story takes place, which is in roughly 2014. Game Cave, the story takes place in the year 2014. That's when I was supposed to have this done. So, so the reason why these are all here is in the story. Rad, who owns Rad Masters, is the character who's the guy who owns this whole thing, has been making the thing, the 100th issue of Game Cave, and it's just a collection of all his favorite, moments in Game Cave magazine through the eras. So it's going to be this giant. What he's printing in their universe will be this like Bible, King James Bible, like version of game, because he can't not keep something out, right? So,
Right.
and it's through every era, and it comes with like he's spent so much time working on it that they're gonna have solid gold covers. You know, like he's putting all of his money. He doesn't care. He wants to make it. It's the best thing. They've been waiting forever, and mayhem ensues. But for the backers, they're gonna get this basic thing, and then the fold-out map. And the fold-out map will be. Did you ever see the Pixel Hunters map I did for Donkey Kong Country, Brandon?
I don't think I did. No.
So this was in game. Let me see if I can bring this up. This was in Game Fan issue 5. So the first issue of my favorite issue of Game Fan ever from back in the 90s was Donkey Kong Country Returns. They did this Donkey Kong Country Returns cover. And when Donkey Kong Country Returns came out on the Wii, we were going to cover it. And I wanted to do a Donkey Kong Country Returns cover. I was going to draw and color it myself. And that was the plan. And I laid it out. And I was going to have this giant treasure map layout. Like I wanted to do the history of Donkey Kong Country through a map format. Okay, it's not here. Let me go into my Game Fan files. What happened was, though, is Dave Howerson, the guy who ran Game Fan, just didn't get why we had to have a Donkey Kong cover because Nintendo wasn't spending ad money. So he canceled that. But I kept the fucking map layout because he couldn't. Because since I was making the magazine, he couldn't stop me. So that was one of those things where I was like, well, I'm making this, so I'm going to get it whether you fucking like it or not. One of the first times in my career I took a serious stance. Where is... Let me see here. It should be in my backup. I wonder why it's not appearing, Brandon. Anyway, I did this treasure map like layout. And so I decided that's a nifty fucking thing. And so the fold-out map that comes with this issue will be the best of the games from eras 1 through 4 in Game Cave. And it'll be like a treasure map. That you go across the map, it's gonna have a little, it's gonna be filled with fucking shit. And once I'm better prepared for that, I'll move it forward. And that'll be that. So that's the plan. The time frame for this, early next year. So all I'm doing now is, I found it here. I knew I put this shit in my Game Fan. So this is what I made. Sorry, I'm on my DeviantArt. So this is what I made for Game Fan 2010. So it was this giant map. Now, I will improve upon this format, and all this stuff will be hand-drawn. But this was for like the history of Donkey Kong. I had very limited space. I wanted 4 pages, but Dave gave me 2, so I had to kind of cram it all in. But I'll make it look like an actual treasure map, and you'll be able to see the edges better. And then it'll fit. And there'll be like all these things that you walk through, and do. X marks the ROMs. Boom. So, basic idea. I made these all look like stickers and shit too.
Right.
I mean, I did all this myself, guys. Like the whole fucking magazine. Not just this, the whole fucking magazine. Like this was the little Big Planet 2 layout I did in Game Fan. Like, look, I did so much work. They've never done this. This is a first. This has to be a first. I gave myself credit. Design. Words by Dave Howerson, design by Rob Duane. So I'm like, I'm putting so much fucking effort. All the strings, this whole cardboard, this whole thing, how it's got thumbtacks, and it's all crafted. See this chalk? That's all me. All this is me. All this shit, these little asteroids coming back here, me, right? All this stuff. All this was me.
All in preparation for Game Cave.
Yeah, right? So it was fucking nuts. The difference is, though, like magazine, it'll be written, it'll be different for the book. But yeah, so that was Game Fan to me. And it fucking drove me batshit crazy. But as I was trying to get to, these are the other layouts. So this is more like what I was talking about, like with the journaling, like this is like a basic idea for it with the journaling. So this is why I did this for Enslaved. Anyhow, so I can make a game magazine like this. I made Game Fan in a week, every issue, when we had to do it. I didn't get any sleep. So I know, taking my time, I can make this in about a month, 2 at the worst. Let's just say 2 months tops. So as soon as PowerPrints, enough of it is done, I'm going to start work on it. And when I say enough of it, I've been taking all the artwork for PowerPrints and using it for Game Cave. So the Chrono Trigger piece will be the artwork that was done for PowerPrints. The Children of the Atom, the reason why that game's in there is because I have an X-Men piece going for PowerPrints. Same with all the Star Wars art I did, so forth and so forth. So I expect to be done with this somewhere around, at the latest, February to April, at the latest. When that's done, I'm going to then send out surveys, get all the fucking info from you folks, update it. I've never sent the survey out. I think the thing to remember with Kickstarter is once you send this, you can only send a survey out once. So all these people's addresses have changed. It doesn't matter. I've never sent the survey out. So I will then send the survey. I'll give you all plenty of warning for the fucking 5 people who check their updates. And then you'll have the survey.
Will we do a survey podcast?
I will be doing this development blog regularly. Like, I haven't done it for about 6 or 7 months because I at the last one I did, if you've noticed, the logo has changed, right? In the color scheme. It's because I took this whole universe and did a third pass on the story. And that took about 6 or 7 months. And then I'm at the point now where I've been art developing and working out my production for the comics. But I looked at the comics and I started looking at it, Brandon, and I'm like, to get the story done, this could be another year by the time I'm done, right? And I'm tired. Like, it's hard to create, too, when you're trying to make everything the best it ever could be, And I need to have an issue or two of this, a year or two of this, where I'm just developing it, and not trying to make it so perfect so it's worth the wait. Because it's never going to be fucking worth the wait. But I want to give you guys something exclusive that back me. I want to give you what we promised, a magazine filled with fighting game stuff. It's going to have a few other things not fighting games for a reason, because I have artwork for other shit. So I try to put it around games that were like, kind of like brawlers or RPG-ish, which is based on this universe. Has some relevance to the themes of this. And then when I get to Game Cave 1-1, that's already worked out. There'll be different games. So this is not going to be like, I'm going to go make a comic and then chunk it onto here and sell it to you twice. If you love this, when I get to Game Cave 1-1, it's a all new set of games, So, and also, it's 88 pages of game magazine and 14 pages, right? 16 pages, including the cover. So really 12 pages, the guide to Game Cave, of just source book material. In the final... When I get to Game Cave 1-1, it's 88 pages of Game Cave magazine. The 13 pages of source book is an extra page because it falls on an odd numeration. And 87 pages of novel, of story, for 192 pages. It's going to be a giant fucking book. I'm going to need a Kickstarter for between $4,000 and $6,000.
Yeah.
Like that won't be like I have $500 to get this done. No, it's going to be like a $4,000 or $6,000. But I'm going to need a year to build that audience and get your guys, get the whole thing worked out. So, this is the best I can do, right? Like, sorry it took 4 years, but we all know the story. Do we need to go through the story again? What happened? I think I've been pretty honest, right, about everything that went down, right? So
I think Yeah, more so than most people would be in their life.
Not in a complainy way. It's just
No,
I
just
think
shit happens, and we tell you guys what happens, and it's documented, and that way, years from now, there's documentation of all the fun shit that's happened to us in our careers and fun and life.
But I started to run in things too where, like, when I was trying to, like, make this the one-all thing, the problem is the Game Cave isn't based around just fighting stuff. Like, they fight in video games, but it's about it's about working and living in this world, at this store, and having a personal life and living there. And all the games based around fighting made no sense for that. Does that make sense? Like, I tried to work the theme to make that happen, but I'm like, it's going to be fucking confusing to some people. Like, why are all the games fighting games? Why didn't you pick this or that? Or, clearly you have Mario influences, or clearly you have Dragon Quest influences. Why aren't those games being... I never have to stop answering those questions. So at this whole time, I've always held this fear that what do I do, right? Do I make this one thing or this other thing? There's always going to be a step to a step. Sometimes you have to go a step back to move forward. So the step back is make the magazine, clearly lay out what the world is, what the store is, and make that the focus. Put that out there for you guys. You got your physical copy, your digital copy, and then when I build the comic site where you're going to be able to read this on a regular basis, all that will always be there. When I go to Kickstarter, that will be there at the very beginning. People will be able to get a digital copy of that. So that part will not be confusing. Then when I add the story, I feel then, you know what I mean? You're not getting it all at once, right, Brandon?
Right.
Like you're not trying to digest. Because when I tell people I'm making a video game magazine that's not real in a fictional universe that's also a comic book and a novel, I get this look from people like, huh? And I'm like, I get you, all right? I get you, but you're going to like it. So I got to like lay down a foundation first, right? What is Game Cave? Fictional store, game store, magazine. So that's what this is all about. And then I get to work out the voices a little bit with the editors, So everywhere from Rad, Bacon, and Nessa, all the way to now where it's Bombcat, Truffles, and Mochi, plus their freelance monsters. The bunch of monsters freelance, like Voodoo Jack, and there's a guy named Hacksaw Delacroix, and there's a guy named fucking Dr. Sugarstein, and a bunch of stupid characters. So it is clearly, it's like one part Muppets, one part Muppets and Creature Box, right? And like, and zany Ratchet and Clanky, I guess, or Psychonautish, or you know what I mean? One part fucking Nichijou, if you guys know what that anime is. My everyday life living. So, but that's the plan. The official Game Cave guide. Get that done. So, in the meantime, what am I doing during the day? So we got about, 30 minutes? I got a few more. What am I doing now? Well, now I'm wrapping up commissions. I work on power prints, and I have some steady freelance coming that I will have to devote 4 to 6 hours a day to. Moving probably in the next couple weeks for the foreseeable future. And that is not stuff that I will be streaming or showing off anywhere. It's just going to be, I took out some contract work that's going to keep me busy for a while because I want a stable financial future, without having to go work at the Radisson or the Courtyard Marriott, working right from home. But that means that I'm also not taking crazy cover gigs all the time. The problem with freelancing art is you get all this work and then there's these lull periods, and all this work and these lull periods, right? And you think during those lull periods, that's when I'm going to go crank out, extra Game Cave or extra power prints. No, that's when you're trying to look for more extra work because you're scared to fucking death. You know what I mean? That they're not going to pay in 120 days. So, yeah, I've been doing freelance full-time from the house for the last 4 years. There was a year break off and on. And before that, another 3 or 4 years. So about 7 years now, And over the next few, for the foreseeable future. Like I said, hopefully the contract lasts at least a year or two, but we'll see. So that will mean I can just focus on this, Game Cave. So once I'm done with Power Prints and I'm working on Game Cave, that's all I'm doing. Maybe the Mega Visions covers and something for Tom every now and then, the random game cover or something, but that's all I'm doing, man. Like, I have the whole story for this worked out for the first 4 issues. If I want to do 4 more after that, great. If I don't, it can stop there and it's complete. So if I can get 2 a year, great. If I can do 1 a year, then this is the next 4 years of effort for me, one way or the other. So any questions, Brandon? Or are you just a yes man? Like,
I'm a little bit of a yes man. No, what has been the hardest part about this whole thing? Like, I mean, like, if you could sum it up for people who really haven't listened to any other development blogs, like, what's been the hardest aspect of all this? Is that too broad of a question?
It's not drawing a comic, right? It's not making a game magazine. It's not even writing it. Because I actually wrote most of this out as a novel. Like, it was like 50,000 words. I'm like, I'm going to need 500 pages to do this. The hardest part has been trusting me to draw in a way that I wanted to. Like, I know it sounds so stupid, folks. You just draw how you want. For all the people on Instagram who are young and starting out, that's exactly what they do. They draw how they want. But my entire career, up until this point, has been the guy who has to fill in and work to the expectations of art directors and salespeople. Like, paying my bills with art has been, I got to draw like this, and then I got to do like this, and I got to do like this. And to the point, people have seen more aggressive things like my Batman, right? Or the Guyver, or like the Enslaved cover. And then they see me doing these weird cartoons, man. And I get people going, why don't you do some more? Like, I just did that. I did this, right? I'll show you. I just did the cover for Mega Visions. This, right? The Berserk, which is more kind of, aggressive, right? Preteens, But I enjoy drawing stupid little cartoons. Like, Game Cave is a lot of slimes and stupid creatures, and when I go to draw, I would not want to draw a whole comic that looked like this.
Right.
It just doesn't interest me. I can't make these characters emote. This looks fun on my wall. Like, this Wolverine looks fun on my wall. But I tried a little bit of it with this, where she's kind of cartoony on the First Strike covers. I did these recently for IDW, and half the people are like, that's cool. Most people are like, Fisher Price models fucking sucks, and it's just like there is an expectation to meet, here's an example of some cartoony stuff, right? Like this Green Lantern I drew, I like cartoon stuff, I just like my cartoons to bleed, Brandon. They get socked in the face and lose a tooth, and they can die and get murdered and shit. So, I think the hardest part has been can I do that? Can I do that? Can I do that? And when I look at Game Cave, where here's an old little piece of concept art I did, where you can see little creatures coming in the water and Bombcats sitting out here, and the Jolly Dagger up here in the air, the hardest part has been yeah, it's okay to do that and not get fucking clowned off the face of the planet or completely ignored. I mean, I just feel and this is me speaking 100% truthfully, I feel whatever it is I do artistically just does not meet the modern trendy internet artist.
Right.
It just doesn't. I'm half a throwback to an older age, and
half ahead of your time,
and half ahead of I'm in a weird fucking zone, man, and so I need my comic book stuff to be little storyboard frames. You need to read the story, see the emotions. It's not about drawing pinups and booties and boobs shoved in your face. It's about characters emoting and make. When I was a kid, I loved Miyazaki films. I fucking didn't care about Aladdin and Lion King. I was watching Porco Rosso, Totoro, and Akira, which isn't Miyazaki, but I was watching like that stuff, and and like reading Bone, and I was just like, I want to make that, but like seeing it through, and then has been the hard, and then trying to fucking like, I won't lie, folks. When I first started doing this Kickstarter, I had 12 years of nothing happening in my life. I mean, I had some financial, like, hey, this business went out of business, this one. That's normal. Jobs, especially in the art business, studios opening and closing. That wasn't financial turmoil for me. But I mean, losing both my parents, plus losing my job twice, plus fucking all my money, the crazy fucking shit, the Marvel nonsense, just weathering it, And like when people are like, what's taking so long? How come you're doing a cover for Game Informer? I'm like, fucker, I just did the cover for Game Informer. Do you understand? Like everything I've been trying to make Game Cave, right? Everything I've been doing. If you remember, I'm going to go back to this piece because this was one of the first pieces that I did for Game Cave. The Bombcat piece.
Take them back, Rob.
Yeah, let's go
way back.
I'll show you. I could scroll. Like, this is all Game Cave art, dude. All this shit is Game Cave stuff, right? So, like, if we keep scrolling the fuck down here, way down here. Okay, there was this one. I know I recolored it though. The Bombcat piece, right?
Yeah, you did a cell shade version where.
Well, it wasn't really cell shade; it was airbrush. But here we go. So, like. Let's look at these two pieces I did as promotional pieces for this Kickstarter in 2013. And let's just take a look at what is on here that wasn't... Look at little plushies, game boxes, giant controllers, turning characters into knapsacks and shit like that. Here, little figurines. This is pre-amiibo, folks. Okay? I mean, there were no amiibos when I was doing this shit, All these extra characters and the little toys and this all came from even stuff I was doing on GameFam when I first did that cover for issue 6, the one that I held up. But I mean, like, I took all of that stuff and have been doing enough of it that it finally caught the attention. That Bombcat piece. So let me just kind of go back. So this Bombcat piece, if you look at this layout, she's sitting there with the sword, all this stuff around her. You look at that, and then you fast forward, to the Star Wars piece that I did, which is right here. Look, she's sitting on a pedestal, all these plushies, and, way more games, Nintendo Power, all those. That caught the eye of Game Informer, right? That goes on Retro Magazine, which was an independent magazine, which, has come and gone since then. All the way up to two things, right? This GTA cover for Le Game magazine, they wanted something like with all the items and stuff like that. I wanted to do more, but there's only so much space, but I put all the weapons. And the Game Informer cover, which, look, is just filled with toys and all this other stuff. So, like, I've been able to take the ideas of Game Cave and what I thought should be some of the future of game magazines, going back to hand-drawn covers, putting in the collectability, all the things that we tend to collect, drawing every one of those out, not taking the time to rethink some of those items in different ways too, beyond just drawing a million characters. I mean, when I worked with Dave on Play, he just was like, put this character, put this character, put this character. He'd have 50 fucking characters. And I'm like, can we put the characters in different ways? Because what ends up happening, and there's only so much fucking real estate, guys. There's only so much space here. And so what I would do when he wanted, like, Cave Story, I made Cave Story. You can see this Cave Story. I made Cave Story character into a plushie bag for Cammy on GameFan. And taking these things versus just drawing more characters, which confuses some people to this day. I mean, I've dig through every comment, on Twitter and Instagram, and people are like, "How come we drew Kingdom Hearts, dude? This right here, so fucking small." Like if we click download, like how come Sora is super small. Well, because where the fuck else am I supposed to put them? You know, there's 100 fucking RPGs and I got 70 plus represented on this cover. You know, like some of these things, they can't all be giant characters unless they turn into giant heads, which is what happens. Sorry. They turn into giant heads. And I don't want to do a giant head, so I've been trying to work all this sort of... And there's no fucking... I've been doing it for so long, you know, like it's not like I'm like, I'll go look at this guy. He figured it out, you know? It's not drawing chibi characters. It's trying to work all this stuff in and it still be tasteful and fun, and it's developing that authenticity. Like, what is my voice? What am I trying to say? How am I trying to say it? As an illustrator and then as a writer, what are these two things? You know? And I just think that the hardest part, Brandon, has been sorting it all out and then trying a version of it every time with one of these prints and one of these little pieces of art, you know?
Yeah.
And that I don't. Every time I've shown this fucking project to publishers, and they look at me like with glassy eyes. They go, "It's a lot of work." Yeah. I sat right at a dinner with a major publisher, and they were like, "That's a lot of work. Why?"
Right.
Because they know there's never going to be. Even if let's say I re-kickstarted this tomorrow, right? I needed $5,000, and let's say I did 50. It's still not going to fucking cover the amount of hours I've spent on this. I mean, the amount of fucking hours I've spent on this, from the economy to the monsters to the races to the entire universe, everything fucking is there. But I showed it to someone, to John Chepenik. John Chepenik is he used to work for like Hardcore 101, big time freelance gaming writer in magazines and stuff for a long time. Really good dude. And he didn't even know I was working on this. I've known him for a while. I said, "Hey, John, let me just pitch this thing to you." I showed him the full spoilery stuff. And he was like, I just wanted to figure, you know, just get a layman's view on it. And the dude gave me like, he's like, "This is fucking like your Harry Potter, man." I'm like, let's just time out, buddy. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like that. But you know, like he was like, it's fucking cool. And so like, I've been so scared of like, fucking that up, you know what I mean? That like things aren't kind of getting done, you know, like, yeah. Oh, so now I'm, you know. And so I was just rewatching a video on the life of Satoru Iwata, which is the president of Nintendo that passed away from cancer about a year ago. And you know, he was a problem solver at Nintendo, or HAL Laboratories, and then eventually Nintendo, and he can go in there and solve problems. And I'm generally a problem solver, so I had to sit down, you know, a couple days ago. It's been offline for a couple days. And I'm like, I need to solve my problem, you know? What can I do to fulfill this Kickstarter? And what can I do, you know, confidently moving forward? Well, I know the characters, I know the magazine, I know how to build all this stuff. So we'll make that, get that to all you people, and then I can go and work on the fucking comic part and do a couple comics and see if it fails, and then do the next, and then give myself a full year to just get it working.
Yeah.
You know? And that's that, man. Like, it's fucking crazy, dude. I didn't think in 4 years I'd end up with a Game Informer cover at the end of it, you know? And you could say, well, you know, who cares? There's one cover. I'm like, yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, the goal was to change game magazines, Brandon. You know?
Right.
Like, I'm sorry, what were you saying?
I mean, I don't necessarily speak for you, but I assume for most people creating, there's a bit of a fear, nervousness, and like, you know, self-resistance, where it's like, when you're onto something, but you're just not sure. So, I mean, you've been creating so much. And I mean, I've seen it more than anybody. Like, I mean, I don't know, what was it? Years ago when we were either when I came down to like hang out with you or work with you, we stopped at the hotel and had coffee, and you just showed me the sketchbook of all this stuff, you know, just drawn out ideas. And even then you're like, you know, it's just going to be something crazy that I'm going to build, and it's going to take me years. And you know, it was just all in this little sketchbook, you know, at the time, and you had notes and timelines and stuff. And now, you know, you have full on typed out timelines of just everything. It evolved, and it gets big, and it's probably, you know, it's a lot to do for one person. I mean, I help here and there. I help like 2%, You know, people are like, oh, I help, I don't help, but
it's by 0.2%. But
yeah.
I paid people. What they don't understand when the Kickstarter went down, I actually paid freelance writers to write me game reviews. So the goal was they were going to write. Wesley wrote stuff, Bacon wrote stuff, and a guy named Trey, a good friend of mine, Trey McIntosh. I can't remember his last name, but it's Trey. I don't fucking remember names. So Trey wrote me a bunch of stuff. Problem was, once I had like the kind of characters I was thinking of, I thought I would take their reviews and rewrite them in the characters' voices. Here's the problem. Every one of them had stories, even though I asked not to do it. Every one of them had stories about when I was a kid this, when I was a kid that, or I always like this, I always like that. I can't have characters saying they always like spaghetti if they don't like spaghetti. Does that make sense? Like I was having characters, like I could divvy out a review to Dragon Man. But what if Dragon Man, what if Dragon Man lived in Dragon Town? Okay, and then Wesley wrote about eating chocolate cake, and they don't eat chocolate cake in Dragon Town, they only eat meat. Then I'm like, okay, then he eats meat, but then I have to, like, it just was like none of that shit worked. So then I had to basically toss out all that work. I paid for it, they got paid, but I was like, good lesson on me. I have to write all of it.
Right.
And this isn't a compendium. Like, I think that's the other thing too. I think when I first pitched it, it was like each book would feature. The initial idea was that I was going to make this fictional game magazine. Each one would have a theme, like fighting games, and then sci-fi, and then like mascots, and that was just because each one I was going to draw a bunch of sketches to go with it, and I would just shove those sketches in there. Okay, but what people kind of thought, and that's because over the years, game magazines have turned into like these compendiums. Right? Like, here's everything on Nintendo. Here's everything on this. Like, they're very historical, and it's all about the stuff you loved. And I think people are like, you're missing this game. You're missing that game. I'm like, I only have 80 to 100 pages. Right. I could not fucking fit every game into this. If you had 300 fucking pages, you couldn't do it.
No.
Like, it would never be enough. Like, I was like, guys, this isn't about fitting every fucking thing in there. Like, it was just about picking a few. We could always go back and do another one later. But then, when I started throwing into the fictional world story part into it, I was like, well, how do I make the fighting game thing reflect what's going on in the story? And that did affect the story. I created a whole fucking thing for them to do. But it turned out to be only about that and not about, like, actually working at, living their lives. And I'm like, say what you want, Brandon. It's great to see the Justice League go off and fight fucking demons. I like to see Batman in the cave arguing with Alfred. Like, that's my favorite shit. And so I had to take a step back and go, well, what would I think of this? And that was 6 months ago. I'm like, I don't think this says Game Cave. This says an adventure that happens to have this weird magazine thing thrown in there, And so I had to do a shift. And when George Lucas was creating Star Wars, if you ever read the original Star Wars draft, it reads like the Phantom Menace and fucking nonsense. It's horrible. But by the fourth draft, it gets like condensed into the movie that we initially got in the 70s. This kind of focused adventure about saving the princess and, defeating the evil empire. Like, I need to constantly zero it down into basic shit. So, in this case, it's finish this fucking Kickstarter,
Yeah.
Not with the bare minimum, like, here's enough to get it done. Like, no, here's a primer. I consider it the primer, much like the official guide for the Nintendo Player's Guide was a primer in a way for what Nintendo Power would become, or owning a Nintendo. This is like, whenever I go to explain people what Game Cave is, they'll be able to download this and read what it is without the story, just the history. Here's all the stuff. Boom, that's what Game Cave is. Then come the adventures. And so I tried to find a way around that. There's no fucking way around it. Even when I put the fucking thing up on a webcomic site, I'm going to have to explain that anyway. Like, there's no way around that, So here we are, but this is the plan, and this is also why, like, how am I supposed to type this shit out? People are like, why don't you fucking make an update? I'm like, how can I type all this out? How can I type this out? Like, I'd be typing this for fucking weeks. So, I explain better.
Then you'd spend another couple of weeks rewriting what you wrote. And then you'd call me, ask me to look at it, and then spend another week rewriting it.
And then they would never read it. They just want, like, So now what I do with the updates, and you all will obviously see it, there's going to be the video and just the like 4 highlights. There's this, there's this, there's this. Watch the video for more, So. But I just recommend, folks, I went and saw 10 Cloverfield Lane about a year and a half ago with Kyle. And the director of that, he did this, he got big for doing this Portal fan film. Okay. And that Portal fan film got him in with JJ, right? So we're like, fan art gets you nowhere. Right, sure. And it became the official fucking thing for Portal 2. But he started it on Portal 1. And he was saying that, you know, when it comes, when you start making things, you know, you go through this thing, you make things. When you start making something for yourself, like you want to actually say, here's who I am. Here's, you know, what defines me. Here's that thing I want to make that explicitly says, this is who I am as an artist and what I'm trying to do. He's like, that it will take you longer than anything. The first one. After that, it's not hard. But that first one takes for fucking ever. You know, it took him like 4. Right. By the time he got done, they made a whole nother Portal game. Yeah. And so like I sat there listening to him, like, that's exactly the spot I'm in. I'm in the spot where I'm going to shift my career forward into this, making stories. You know, and look, there's going to be some fan art in there because it goes with the game magazine. So you're still going to get me doing, you know, a Final Fantasy Tactics piece or a fucking Mortal Kombat piece or whatever in the future, you know, whatever games we cover, Mass Effect 2. They'll be there. It's just going to be in that magazine. There's not going to be a lot of it, like 4 a year. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I get to transition into telling stories, at least for the next 4 years, so that I can look back and be like, well, I can write some shit. Here's my shit. You know, like, I just want to be able to show what's been in my head. I first started this for Game Fan in 2010. It just didn't get printed. This was called Console Junkies. I told Dave we should do because Game Fan used to have a comic strip with Monitor, which is this giant blue guy with the screen. I'll wrap up on this. He had this giant screen, and I said, Dave, we should bring that comic back, but just put it in the future. So I said it. This is 2010. I said it way in the future, where they all played games for a living, and they were using these virtual reality things to remote control these drone robots, and then what they would do is go into other dimensions. They were exporting their gaming capabilities in arcades, right, and you know, playing through VR sets. They were exporting that through other dimensions. And sometimes it would be for cleaning homes, and the other times it would be for war, and then they would fucking gamble on those and watch it for fun. And there was no game, there was one game magazine left in the future, and it was, you know, Game Fan. And Dave, whose name was E-Storm, it was him and Monitor running the whole thing, and he wanted to pass it off to Bombcat. Bombcat was the character. She was like the only fan that would write in, you know, and he leaves it to her, you know, and she fucks it up. So, like, and she manages to ruin the one.
You know what? I'm just saying, I feel like I might be Bombcat one day.
We all are, dude. I have failed so many times, dude. All I do, like, I'm not saying all I do is fail, but this is not the career I envisioned for myself. You know?
Oh, I just meant when you hand off Sketchcraft to me, and then I just totally ruin it. I ruin the legacy.
Yeah, I don't know about that. You know, I'll probably hand it off to Ashley before I hand it to you. But she won't want it. She's like, I don't need that shit. I got my own fucking thing. I'm like, God damn it. Well, Brandon it is.
Right,
you know, I hand it to your wife. She's a little more talented.
Right.
But
yeah, pretty much.
But anyhow, man, so like that's where it was. That comic didn't get printed because I had fucking deadlines. I drew like half of it and I was like, fuck. And then Dave had notes. That's not how I look. Why are you doing this? I'm like, what do you fucking care? Like, just shut up, dude, you know? So that was the first version of it. And then here we are. So like I said, my goal is no later than spring. I don't like to give dates. I'm going to wrap up on this, folks. I don't give dates and percentages because they don't mean anything to me. If I told you this whole project was 98% complete, but the last 2% took me a year to make, you know what I mean? Because it was the hardest fucking thing I've ever done, then what does it matter?
Right.
You know, what if it all came down to one last layout, but it took me forever to make it, you know? Like percentages don't mean anything. You know what? I don't like specific, like, I'm planning on having it this month. Like, I like buffers. Fall, spring, summer. You know what I mean? Right. Like, I'm hoping for the spring. The power prints thing is kind of dependent upon it and whatnot. So I may or may not have to do a digibooks to, you know, raise some money to print it because the funds for Game Cave went poof away. I don't have them. Someone took all that shit. So I've covered that in great detail. And yes. I don't want to beat him up anymore. I don't want to go through that fucking thing anymore, But so I have the funds in my savings, but I might do a digibooks. 1, to show how I made all this stuff, and then 2, to raise the funds so I don't have to fucking use the last of my savings to fucking... Another reason, folks, why I'm taking contract work. So that I have more than just my savings. To fucking get out of it. But I will get out of this hole, folks. Like it's just a transition period. This, when you start the thing and then you finish, and I say overall it's a colossal success. I would love to show you all the story stuff, but I just don't see the point in it. Brandon, you can verify I have all the Google Docs and everything's written out and all the shit's built, right? All right, you've seen it all.
Oh, yeah.
So, Brandon's seen it, Bacon's seen it. If I start sharing that stuff, then, what's the fun? You know what I mean?
Right.
What's the fun? So, all right, Brandon, is there any other questions? Anything in the chat room?
As far as the chat room goes, Armando and Pika Petey seem obsessed with, do you pluck or trim your eyebrows, Rob? They went on for a half hour about that. So,
yeah, I get groomed, man. All right. I just have big eyebrows.
Rob goes to a stylist. He has his own stylist that he likes to go to that hooks him up. And
he's been on the show, Chase.
Yeah. So
former Marine.
They seem very into knowing that, so I figured it was worth saying because it
has absolutely nothing to do with.
It has nothing to do with the ask, but you asked what was going on in the chat room, and those two went at it about your eyebrows for about a half hour, and I am on chat room duty, so I got to read it all.
There were some prints for this Kickstarter too that I had offered. I'm not going to be drawing those prints because those characters don't exist in that form anymore, and I don't feel like doing that. So they could take 50 to 70 hours a piece to do, folks. I'd rather not spend 70 hours times 3 to make a bunch of prints I'm not going to use or reflect the characters. So instead, the artwork that's in the book that I have artwork for will be supplemented for prints, and it's going to be, it might be more than 5 prints. It could be like a set of 7 or 8. But whoever bought physical prints will just get those prints, plus the Bombcat one. So because that I have, but that's it.
That is it.
So what am I up to next? I got commissions, which I spent all day fucking getting set up. We got power print starting next week. My wife's birthday's tomorrow, so I actually have to be normal for that. And then if I look at the doc, let me see here. Battle 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I anticipate I'll probably start working on this right after Christmas in terms of laying this out, or January. At the latest, I'll start in January. So, and I will be streaming every one of these layouts. And the last time I streamed making game layouts, it gets real quiet and boring. So, people do not like watching people make gaming magazine layouts, Brandon. It's just not fun.
Yeah.
It's boring. All right, Brandon. I'm going to head out of here. You going to go see Justice League this weekend?
Yep.
I'm sorry. All right. So, I've been waiting 10 years for this movie, and now I'm like, I'll see it later. So, whatever, That's it. We've covered a lot, Brandon. We said a lot. It's been an hour. It's been a fucking crazy long hour. I will be back on the 24th. We have a gaming cast, and on the 27th, we have a regular podcast. All next week, I'll be streaming Color Pencils and Darksiders. So join in then, folks. Talk to y'all soon.
Real quick, thanks to Hector, Chase, Armando, Ash, you're a dick, Pika Pete, and everybody else joining us in the chat room and watching. I appreciate it all. Gives me something to do.
Yeah, we appreciate it. That's it, folks. I'll see you all soon. Peace, everybody. Say goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Say goodbye. Say goodbye.
This was Game Cave Development Blog. Needs like some medieval music. Ding, 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 ding.